7 Habits of Highly Critical Readers. Reading for language learning and test-taking purposes may pose enormous problems for language learners who've not formed the habit of paying critical attention to the essential elements of information contained in the text. This video provides useful tips that should be used by language learners to distinguish salient points from trivia. Paying attention to the essential elements of information. Critical reading is different from leisure reading. Reading for the purpose of test-taking as part of the language learning process requires learners to pay particular attention to the who, what, why, where, when, and how components of the messages transmitted. To do this effectively, language learners must focus not just on the encoder and decoder of the messages, but also on the intent of the communicator, using context clues to achieve deeper understanding. Readers often draw a blank when faced with unfamiliar words. Falling back on context clues and prior knowledge of the subject matter would enable language learners to circumvent this hurdle. Learners should resist the temptation to stop reading to look up unfamiliar words in a dictionary. It is advisable to try to figure out the meaning of such words from the context of communication. Predicting the content and intent of text. Making predictions about the content and intent of a text is a useful critical reading strategy. Highly critical readers tend to rely on knowledge of text typology, verbal tenses, discourse structure, and register to make meaningful predictions about the content of text as well as the author's intent. Previewing text for reading purposes. There are different ways of previewing text that are read for examination purposes. One way to do this is to review the titles of texts. Previewing could also be done by skimming through the section headings of text. Better yet, learners should scan photo captions in a bid to get a clear picture of the structure and content of text. Skimming and scanning. Language learners should not shy away from using the techniques of skimming and scanning to survey text they are reading for analytical purposes. Skimming and scanning should be restricted to the pre-analytical phase of textual analysis. This technique would enable readers to get the gist of the content of the text they are reading. Skimming and scanning should be followed by an in-depth reading which enables readers to identify main points, details, and tone of the writer. Reading text questions from the outset. As far as test taking is concerned, language learners should get into the habit of scanning questions before perusing the text. The rationale behind this activity is to provide learners with clues on the location of information they will be looking for during the critical reading process. Simulating reading text. One reliable strategy that test takers should use in trying to learn a language is to simulate test conditions. Simulation enables language learners to prime themselves for critical reading. Simulation should be done by reading passages once and then answering the questions. Learners should practice getting the main point in one reading. By increasing the intensity of home reading practice, language learners will be better prepared for reading text and examination. In conclusion, critical reading should be perceived as a methodic, evaluative, and analytical information processing activity.